Good morning, Professor. This is Group 5, and our topic for the case study is Athens Affair Privacy versus Security. Now, Guneet would be taking over the introduction part.
The case is based on the actions by certain state and federal law enforcement agencies to set up wiretaps, which enable the agencies to intercept and record telephone conversation of subscribers. However, the case is challenging one since it also demonstrates how difficult it is hard to install the wiretaps owing to the advancement in mobile telephone industry. The fact that more than 40% of US households are not connected to any landline based phone networks and made the interception of the communication among the household relatively hard traditionally. And interception of the communication would simply involve using a piece of hardware that is similar to the Y connector at the local exchange, where a recording device could be installed to record all the calls. The Athens affair case involved a rocket being secretly installed on the switches of Greek wireless providers. The incident comprised the mobile security system of the Greek wireless provider as well as cell phone call conversation of individual and including politicians were recorded without their knowledge. What was more shocking was the fact that investigation authorities fumbled with the investigation and destroyed crucial evidences. The case exposed the weaknesses in investigating the cyber forensics and need to create a skilled international investigating agency that would adequately perform cyber forensics.
Now, I would be talking about the pro and the con side of the case study. So, installing a backdoor in the smartphones has been a constant effort of the local and the state government so that the data of the user are accessible to them. Tracking the data of the users play a crucial role in the guaranteed safety of the state. However, this opinion has to be carried out under the law. The encryption policy has been handled critically to ensure that the policy is being used properly. One of the most compelling arguments made against the confidential data by hacking a phone company and the surveillance mechanism. The top government official has been spied on by hackers, thereby compromising the integrity and the security of a phone company. Coming to the con side, the only reason why a government may want to spy on people is for their safety of the country. Prior to the Athens affair case being uncovered, the Greek government was anxious on keeping an eye on possible terrorist attack during the Olympic Games. It was a great idea at the time to focus on the nature of information and calls that were being made by different people in Greece. However, instead of Greek government and the country mobile agency gearing up their efforts on the terrorist and the potential terrorist, the hacker used the opportunity to focus on the communication between the Greek government and their people. According to my point of view, the foreign government was involved on spying on the other people and its government without their knowledge. The con side of the case is that there is a possibility for the exploitation of the weakness that are associated with the law, intercept program by hacking, and even foreign government agencies.
Hiding the data. Privacy is not usually about data hiding. It is about enforcing norm and expectation with regards to data sharing. For example, a purchaser reveals his or her identity and account information to a merchant. The merchant passes that information through a data conduct to the clearance network. The availability of funds or credit is verified and transaction is processed. Along the way, at least four entities are given access to potentially sensitive personal information. The merchant learns the customer's name, credit card number, and purchasing preferences. Some or all that information is also passed to the merchant's bank, the clearance network. This information is consistent with the primal goal of receiving goods. Data privacy refers to the rule that regulates the information sharing and permissible secondary use of data. The data when there are many people who have personal information about disclosure, privacy standard, control what to the next, what could they be able to do with the data, to whom they are allowed to share the information that they receive, what secondary use of personal information are authorized by those who receive it. Data security, on the other hand, governs the method for guaranteeing that the revealed information stays where the parties of the transaction desire it to be and is only accessible to those who are permitted. As a result, a privacy breach typically entails international conduct by the information received that goes against the receiver's expectation. In contrast, a security breach may entail a breach of a duty of care, but it almost never involves the deliberate leaking of information. This discrepancy implies that alternative approaches to developing that information security and privacy rules that may be required.
The discussion of privacy versus security is very nuanced and does not have a simple black and white answer. There are situations in which security is of utmost importance, and because of that, you have to give up some of your privacy. As an example, when you go on an airplane, you have to give up your personal privacy by letting airport security scan through you and your luggage. But people are willing to make this sacrifice because it is essential for maintaining security on airplane, which is obviously of utmost importance. Similarly, on the internet, the question of privacy versus security becomes ever present. Although it is not always a dichotomy and they can coexist, but whenever there is a clash between security and privacy, I more often than not will take the side of privacy. And I carefully frame it like that rather than making an absolute statement like I will always take the side of privacy, because practically speaking, absolute statements like this are not very helpful in the complex world we face. And the reason why I value privacy more than security is rooted in the belief that that is shared by all of the democratic world and is explicitly mentioned in the Article 12 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with their privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attack upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has right to protection of the law against such interference or attacks. It especially becomes very important for consumer that they care about their privacy because corporation already value security a lot. A leak in security would result in financial loss of the company, and the incentive structure of corporations is made in such a way that it promotes security. But when it comes to privacy, it is opposite. It promotes less privacy because less privacy would result in better ad revenue, better recommendations, and things of that nature, which is great for company, but for individual and society it becomes a disaster because the companies which control your private data and ultimately the ability to influence you from that private data will hold an astronomical amount of influence over things such as election and voting. All this influence will make the democratic process ineffective and corrupt, way more than it already is. Practically speaking, then the countries would be run by monarchs of tech companies rather than democracies. And we know what happens when you have absolute power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And some people suspect that we are already way closer to this than we think. The amount of meddling Facebook is doing with the elections in US is very concerning to say the least. And it is bound to get worse if we don't step in. Due to all these reasons I mentioned before, and due to all these reasons I mentioned, I believe that privacy should be valued way more than it already is for the preservation of both democratic process and individual sovereignty. Thank you.
Conclusion. So, as discussed above, tracking systems can have a lot of benefits, from enhancing security to reducing crimes and also locating criminals. However, it is a crime to locate an individual without the consent from the individual. So, there is an ethical issue involved in locating individuals as it violates their privacy and freedom. Every individual should enjoy full privacy and protection of his or her data unless there is an explicit consent from the individual to process the data. So, by allowing government to track the location of individual using mobile phone technologies, can create new opportunities for breaking the law or taking benefits away from others. It can also further open the doors for foreign governments and other hackers to violate the privacy of citizens by spying on their communications. The act of foreign nation and other unauthorized individual accessing location information and data without the consent of the parties involved, at times with the malicious intentions, is indeed immoral and unethical. So, unless the government can guarantee this information informed by the mobile phone users will not be accessed by the other unauthorized user, it is our viewpoint that the software should not be used.